Do you agree with J.K. Rowling that Labour has turned its back on women? My question is this: has Labour turned its back on women? 0345 6060 text 84850. Ask Alexa to send a comment to LBC. Has Labour turned its back on women? 0345 6060 973. Now, joining me is Frida Wallace, a trans activist, YouTuber and podcaster at the Trans Lobby. Very good afternoon to you, Frida. Thank you for joining me. How do you define a woman?
Well, we're not going to go down that road, Ali, because women define themselves. It's not for politicians to define what women are. Women define who they are. That's feminism. That's how I understand feminism. Women are not supposed to define by the government or any lobbyists. J.K. Rowling is using her media influence to duplicitously claim that she's standing for women. It's like an imagined threat from trans women. And the idea that Labour are not standing for women, I mean, there are issues in society to do with systemic misogyny, but it's not trans women that are the problem there. These, the misogyny in society cannot be combated by pointing at what trans women are doing. That's deflection, and that causes harm to women. Feminist organisations do not agree with J.K. Rowling. Patsy Stevenson, who campaigns against police misogyny, does not agree with J.K. Rowling. Sister Space, an organisation that campaigns for the rights of Afro-Caribbean women, does not agree with J.K. Rowling. They make their arguments about single-sex spaces while ignoring all the data that make women vulnerable. And it implies that trans women are a social threat. So when somebody with the privilege of J.K. Rowling can have a front page on the Times and Patsy Stevenson can't, I'll see that is where the skew is. That's where the problem is. And the people around J.K. Rowling tend to be, quite well-to-do, well-heeled women who seem to be working for lobbyists. It seems they're coming out of the Policy Exchange, the Institute of Economic Affairs, the New Culture Forum. These are the people that propel trans issues into the media.
Okay. Frida, does biological sex have no part to play in this conversation at all?
In terms of biological sex, when this conversation, it becomes a dehumanising argument because we start talking about can women have penises? Is it wrong to say a woman has a cervix? We don't reduce people to body parts in an argument like that, because all it is a gotcha moment for people like lobbyists who want to sort of embarrass Keir Starmer or other politicians. It doesn't move feminism forward. It doesn't help women. Mm-hmm. All it does is create almost ridiculous Monty Python-esque sound bites for the radio.
Can I ask you something, Frida? Would it be offensive? And I want to ask you directly. Would it be offensive if trans women were defined as or were referred to as people who identify as women rather than women? Would that be offensive?
It's not offensive to me, but that's not how society defines anything.
But you see, Frida, why is it offensive to somebody? This is the thing that I'm struggling with. Genuinely, I'm struggling. It's not offensive to you. I can't put myself in that position. But why do you think some people would find it offensive?
Because it becomes a political football.
But it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't be. But J.K. Rowling has made it one. She's not helping any women, but she's, we know consistently that all J.K. Rowling's talking points are about trans women, and women are being talked over by J.K. Real feminism is being talked over by J.K. Rowling. But there should be other women on the cover of the Times, not J.K. Rowling. That's my point. And when we're constantly talking about trans issues all the time, that is harming women's causes. Now, I'm not here to defend whether I'm a woman or how you define me. You can define me however you want, Ali. But in social reality, people just refer to me as female. Like if I'm out socially, it's not a problem for anyone.
I understand that
professional
point.
But I will say, I can understand, like, when it comes to when people read these arguments on Twitter, it can seem very vexatious, and it's a toxic debate.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you, and that's why and I absolutely agree with you, which is why we should take the rhetoric down and try and deal with it in a rational, sensible, respectful manner. Let me ask you this, Frida. Do you think? I mean, some of the language around it has become very politicised and toxic, but do you think that there are actual reasons why, let's just say, biologically defining a woman is important in certain cases? I'm not talking about the identity part of it and how someone feels and how someone wants to come across. No, I'm talking about, for example, healthcare, for example, monitoring stats, or prisons, where we had the Isla Bryson case in Scotland, for example. And I know that those are very few and far between. But do you think that in certain cases it does actually matter? Biological sex is coming to the fore. I'm not talking about the political culture wars nonsense, but actually practical elements of it.
Yes, of course, there are going to be situations where biological sex matters. When I changed my name and changed my NHS number, I started to get letters asking me to come for a cervical smear.
Yes.
So I had to ring the doctor and say, excuse me, I don't have a cervix.
Yes.
That's important.
Yeah.
That matters. But that's between me and my doctor.
Yes.
In terms of the prisons argument, yes, you can make that argument, obviously, but that argument only exists because of the trans debate. I don't see prisons being improved for women. I don't see women being treated any better in prisons. I don't see the cases of prison guards harassing and sexually assaulting women going down. I don't see prisons improving. There are young offenders being housed together, male and female, because there's just not enough space in prisons for them. They're just facts, and people are not talking about those facts because J.K. Rowling has skewed the debate so much that the only time we talk about prisons is through this trans lens, and it's distorting.
Frida, let me ask you something, and I've been thinking about this issue a lot. And it's around identity on both sides here, right? And I don't even like talking about sides because it's not really the right terminology. But a trans woman or a trans man or whatever it is, right? They're going to have an identity, a view of themselves. And biological women will also have an identity. How do we actually get to a position where we can have respect for trans people and also dignity for women who identify around their biological sex? I mean, how do we square this? How do we move forward on this?
The thing is, socially and politically, women tend not to define themselves by their biological sex because those arguments start to become to do with autonomy. So I'm sure it's fine to define yourself however you want, but in social realities, we're not looking at somebody's biology. We're communicating with somebody on a very personal level, and it's to do with gender.
Yeah.
So, I've never run into a conflict with anyone based on that. I mean, I have on the internet.
but not in reality. Yeah, exactly.
But it's not for me to say to you in this conversation how women should be defining themselves. Now, that's not what I'm here to do. But what I noticed through the whole modern period of progressive democracy, the risk assessment has been done. The whole of the research, and you could call it a risk assessment. The risk assessment has been done just through praxis. But recently, since the idea of self-ID came in and the lobbying started to come against that, you've seen these arguments come into the media, and that is why. So unpicking the Equality Act and saying we need to start defining women biologically now is coming out of that. It's not coming out of any kind of feminism. And this idea that J.K. Rowling is some kind of a voice for women is complete nonsense because women don't agree with J.K. Rowling.
Frida,
some might.
Just before I let you go, very briefly, I mean, we've had a conversation for the best part of 10 minutes now, which has been, I think, respectful and actually coming to dealing with some of the crux of the issues, right? You've talked about the biological elements when it comes to medical issues, and that's an issue between you and your doctor. You've also talked about the fact that you don't mind being described as a person who identifies as a woman. Why is this such a heated, toxic, polarized debate? Why can't we actually have the kind of conversation you and I are having now to try and work a way through in terms of the language? We're all grappling with it. We're all trying to work it. Why can't we just deal with it in a dignified manner?
I think it's a social media phenomenon, and I think it has parallels with the immigration debate.
Right.
Because what else notice is, some people might as well say trans women are coming over on small boats to turn your kids into non-binary climate activists. That's the kind of ridiculousness of the debate. Yes. There's no invasion of trans women. Nobody's taking over anything. Nobody's rights are being taken away just because I decided, I'd feel better if I called myself Frida. That's not, it's not the case.
I understand.
But I can have a philosophical argument about what a woman is. That is a separate thing altogether.
Understood.
And we need to have these arguments. But I would say, J.K. Rowling has done a lot of damage. And if you follow Trans Safety Network or if you follow the Good Law Project, it's being reported now that there are children who have taken their own lives because they've been on a waiting list for transgender healthcare, and it's unacceptable. And this is a scandal. It's absolute. There's going to be an inquiry into all of this corruption, and we need to start that now.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Frida. That was Frida Wallace. Appreciate that. Trans activist, YouTuber and podcaster at the Trans Lobby.